Right, thank you very much, Ed. Okay. I just want to say thank you to Tinus for representing us at the old age home there on a Wednesday. So the church leaders must take a turn there at the old age home, and he was there this last Wednesday to bring the message there to the old people at the old age home. And he spoke with Uncle Herbie a bit, and he recorded a message that Uncle Herbie gave there. And so the message was, maak gereed, be ready. I know it applies to Uncle Herbie more because, we've been encouraging him, saying, we're actually jealous of you. You're going to meet the Lord soon, But we've been saying this for the last, however long, 8 years. But he's still there. And but it applies to us. Maak gereed. Let's be ready, right, for the Lord's return. And thanks for that, Tinus. We missed you guys last week. We were away at one of my best friends from school. It was his 60th birthday, and we went to that. And as we just reflected on the weekend, it just hit home this thing of the priority of family and friends. And it happened to be Father's Day as well. And so you guys know, so that for Margie and I, that's the thing, that burns in our heart. Right, our earthly families, husband, wife, our children, and our church family, that's us here, and then our heavenly family, are all those who are born again. And that's the essence of our lives, that we've come to realize. And that's what, really beats for us. And so to just share where that came from, three of the people, as we thought about it, so my friend whose birthday it was, he's really done well. He lives in the States. He flies his whole family, his mother, his brother, his two sisters who all live overseas. He flies them here to the Eastern Cape, hires out a whole game lodge for a whole week, because he wants to show them this is where he grew up. This is what family is. This is what friends is. And in spite of his success, he's been all over the world. He's been to China. He's been all very wealthy, multi-million-dollar guy, not a million rand, because that's not much, but he's a very wealthy guy. And out of all that, he comes back, and it's about family. And that's the essence of it. The other friend who was there, very, very successful. He played provincial cricket. He's now one of the biggest steel merchants in South Africa. Very, very wealthy guy. He owns massive properties. And he's been very successful, there. And through his life, he spoke a bit as well. And I was shocked. The things that he talks about that changed his life and means everything to him, his family and friends in the Eastern Cape. Amazing. The other friend, some other best friend's wife, and that's when they got married, very alternate, very different, very way out. 2 children later, 18 years later, a different person. What children do to you. It reminded me of my cousin, who was in 3-2 Battalion, in the army, we fought in Angola. He came from there and he was a killing machine. He said, I just want to learn he said, I want to go to Japan because I want to learn how to kill people more effectively. That's how he was. Children later, a different man. God's plan is the family. Without the family, there are problems. We in South Africa today, we need to give attention to this thing. We need to change this thing, I always said one of the great evils of apartheid was it split the family. It left the mother and the grandmother and the children in the homelands. The men had to go work alone and put them in hostels. That was one of the great evils of apartheid. One of the great evils of today, is the grant system. With all its good intentions, it's removed the need for a father in the home. And we in South Africa have got a tsunami of fatherlessness is coming towards us. It hasn't hit us yet. We're starting to feel it, but it hasn't hit us yet. It's something we're going to have to really give attention to in South Africa, and it has the potential to cause huge problems. We know the stats of those in prisons, that 80% of them grew up without a father in the home. But in that is also the greatest opportunity for us as the church to make a difference, because when we introduce people who've never had a father, who've never experienced a father, to Father, our Father God, Abba Father, their lives are changed. And in that is a huge opportunity. So that's just a reflection of the weekend. That's not my message, but to just stir you all in that area. And so the topic of today's message is nesting ostriches. What a strange topic for a message. And it could have been nesting hens, But I have never farmed with hens, but I have farmed with ostriches. And about 30 years ago, there was this ostrich boom, So before that, you only found ostriches around Oudtshoorn and that. And about 30 years ago, suddenly the ostriches started appearing all over the show. Middelburg, around the Karoo, there, and there where we were at Somerset East. We farmed at Somerset East at that stage. We farmed so there with ostriches, and by the time I was 30, I really didn't have a lot of black hair left. The grey hairs were there, and I always say that was from the ostriches. And so nesting ostriches, and I think that we know ostriches. If you just got the next picture there, that so you got the male and the female ostrich, and so we know that they're the eggs, and then they hatch out into the little chicks, and we know that the ostriches, if you go to the next slide, Stu, they make these nests, and they lay these eggs, and there's the female, and she's has got her eggs over there, and she's about to go down. And just go to that last slide there, Stu. There you'll see she's lying on her eggs, and so she's protecting them, And the thing about ostriches, or if you just take them in the wild, that there's only about a 10% chance that those eggs make it and so become chicks. Only about a 10%. It's not an easy thing, because, especially in the wild, there are lots of predators, hyenas, jackals, snakes even. The eggs are lying there, and there's a stampede of elephants. It's a problem. So it's not an easy thing. And these ostriches have quite a job, to raise these. And so the environment has to be right. The temperature has to be right. They have to keep the eggs at just the right temperature. That's why they lie on them like that, because when that temperature is right, the formation occurs inside the egg. The bones start to develop, the organs start to develop, so it requires heat, and obviously it requires the shell. So that's on the outside. There must be a shell, because otherwise, if there's no shell, and so there's no place there where that formation actually can occur in a safe place. If ostriches come and lay on it, they would squash them. So there's that shell, and inside that shell, you don't see nothing of what's happening inside there, but the process is ongoing, and the formation of the bones and the organs and everything is happening over there inside the shell. And lastly, there's a time period. 42 days is required of them lying so they're on the nest, and then the chicks come out, and they start to pick their way out there, and great event that happens. when they come out. So that's the quick lesson for all you Grootfontein Oaks. I don't think that they lecture you on ostriches, do they? You don't. So Percy, is it part of the curriculum? I don't think so. So there you guys, you got your lesson on ostriches from an ex-ostrich farmer. And I say ex with meaning. Mark's made me promise when we moved to Middelburg that we would never farm with ostriches, and we haven't. So in spite of Herbie trying his hardest. So that's the analogy, and we have a tendency in this church, so with the likes of Stuart and Cor, to always have analogies. And we know that Jesus, he always used practical everyday things to impart a spiritual truth. And so what can be the spiritual truth of this nesting of these ostriches? And so starting off, life on earth is not a walk in the park. It's not a bed of roses. And it was just a week or so ago that Uncle Angus, in the thought of the day, said this thing, and he quoted John chapter 16 and verse 33. In this world you will have troubles. You will have troubles. Not everything will work out the way that you think. And it's interesting, so that is John chapter 16 verse 33, and it's close to Uncle Angus's other one, Jeremiah 33 verse 3. What do you do when that happens? You call on the Lord, eh? You call on the Lord. And if you think of Paul, Paul is one of my heroes as well. And what an incredible man of God. I mean, he was responsible, for taking the gospel to the ends of the known world at that stage. He took it right through over there, what is today Turkey and Italy and Greece and all those places. 3 missionary trips, that he did, and he absolutely laid down his life, and you read about all the miracles and the handkerchiefs and the and the preaching, and not to mention the fact that even to this day he impacts our lives in a way because he wrote 2/3 of the New Testament, and what an incredible man. And you think, wouldn't it have been incredible to have so just been able to be with him and see all the miracles and all the glory and all that. But if you read a little bit between the lines, you see, wow, Paul went through some stuff, eh? And in around 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 24 to 28, he says, 5 times I received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the open sea. I've been constantly on the move. I've been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in danger from my own countrymen, in danger from Gentiles, in danger in the city, in danger in the country, in danger at sea, and in danger from false brothers. I have labored and toiled and have often gone without sleep. I have known hunger and thirst and have often gone without food. I have been cold and naked, and besides everything else, I face daily the pressure of my concern for all the churches. Isn't that did life just smoothly go along for Paul? Not at all. Eh? Look what he faced, If you read between the lines over there with Timothy, and I've just been reading through the books of Timothy there, he says, Timothy, my son, I give you this instruction in keeping with the prophecies once made about you, so that by following them you may fight the good fight. This is not a walk in the park. This is fighting the good fight. Hold on to faith and a good conscience. Some have rejected these and so have shipwrecked their faith. Under Paul's ministry, there were people who shipwrecked their faith. Among them are Hymenaeus and Alexander, whom I have handed over to Satan to be taught not to blaspheme. Hectic stuff, bro. Handing people over to Satan, In that next verse, chapter 5, it says, some have, in fact, already turned away to follow Satan. He had people under his ministry who turned away to follow Satan. He tells Timothy as well, he says, stop drinking only water, use a little wine because of your stomach and your frequent illnesses. Paul's protege But Timothy had frequent illnesses. You'd think that he would just healed them, And then he says, to Timothy there, he says, you know that everyone in the province of Asia has deserted me, including Phygellus and Hermogenes. Everyone in the province of Asia has deserted me. Wow, this is Paul, So that I think can show us, that even Paul, it was not a walk in the park. It was fighting daily, a fight of faith, And we were discussing it in life group, and so thanks for the questions over there, Net, because we were able to, in spite of the fact that we weren't here on Sunday, we were able to really enjoy the heart of the message, so that came here, and I think that what came out was, how do we handle all these things? How do we handle all of this? This pressure? How do we endure? How do we keep enduring? As Ed said this morning as well. How do we keep enduring? And and the stress that causes when this goes wrong and this goes wrong. Because I was also just sharing how this thing's broken and this thing's broken and that thing won't work and this. How do we handle all these things? And I think that if you start at the point where saying, I'm a Christian, the Lord's on my side, everything's just going to go well, and then all these things start going wrong, that causes stress, not so. But if you start from the point of life on earth is not such a walk in the park, things are going to go wrong, things are going to break, this is going to happen, etc., we will be able to handle it a little bit better. It reminded me of the story so many years ago, so with Kelly, Jane, and Lloyd, we've got this mountain on the farm that's called Top Tom, and it's the highest mountain over there, and we decided we're going to climb it. But I had to prepare them for it, and I prepared them well, and we went up there and we slept at the foot of it, right in a tent that night, and I had them so psyched because I said, you're going to sweat like you don't know what's going on. Your muscles are going to give in. You're going to be so tired. It's going to be tough. Man, we breezed up there. They got the top. They couldn't believe that they're at the top. They said, is that it? And so I think that maybe if we start at that point of saying, it's going to be tough. Things are going to be wrong. There are going to be obstacles. We are fighting. We're in a spiritual battle because every step that we take for the kingdom of God, we've got to know the enemy's out there. He wants to stop us. He wants to block us. And so I think that's the first thing that we can learn from the ostrich is it's not easy. It's a tough challenge to raise ostrich chicks. So we mentioned those 4 requirements that are needed actually to raise those ostrich chicks, and we said it's the protection of the parents, so the ostriches, it's the heat, the warmth, it's the shell, and then lastly it's the timing. And so I just want to go through each of those. So like the ostriches have to protect those eggs from the predators, etc., so the environmental things, everything. So when God, so I must say this, that the eggs that we are nesting is the purposes, the identity, and the dreams that God has for us. The purposes, the identity, and the dreams that God has for us. And those we've got to protect. We've got to nurture. That's us. We lying on them. And there's the enemy out there. There are predators. There are demons out there. There's schemes of the devil that are out there to kill that thing, because that's what they don't want to see that thing of God come to fruition. So we need to know that we need to protect them. We need to keep them warm. There needs to be warmth. We need to keep it hot. And if you think of it, so like this, you've seen those programs on TV where it speaks about cold cases. So that they were cases that weren't solved, and they stored away over there. And they call them cold cases. So that's when you put that thing one side and you forget about it. No. We need warmth on that thing, whatever that thing is, that purpose, that destiny, that dream that God has for you. We need to keep it warm. We need to think about it. We need to be actively so keeping it warm so that it can develop. Like the egg that already has been kept warm, and while it's been kept warm, the organs and the bones and everything, the structure comes into place and it starts to happen. Those things need to be there. The shell. The thing about the shell is that what's happening inside the shell, no one sees, you see. But God is busy. Things are happening there. There's formation there. The shell is not a limitation. It's a place where incubation happens. So that's a word you must remember. Incubation happens inside the shell. And the classic example out of the Bible is that of Joseph. So remember Joseph, forgotten, thrown into prison. No one could see him. No one knew about him. Even I always forget who it was the baker or the butler forgot about him, you know. He was forgotten. No one saw. But God was busy with Joseph. God was forming him. God was doing something in his life. God was preparing him so that at the appointed time, so that he would be ready to step into that purpose, that destiny, that dream. All right? Remember the dreams over there that he had. And I remember that a few years ago, Yanni brought that message about the dream giver. Yanni, is that right? So, or he spoke to us about dreams and about that dream that God has placed in your heart. And that was the dream, you know, that God gave to Joseph. And you can imagine how Joseph struggled with that thing. But there are many other examples. You know, Gideon, there he was, out of sight in a wine press, threshing the grain, you know, out of sight. And that was the shell for him. That was the time of incubation for him when God was preparing him so when he called him out, stand up, mighty man of God. Think of David, and there were two instances in David's life. When he was a shepherd boy, that was the shell. He was out there. He was looking after the sheep. They even forgot about him when Samuel came over there to Jesse's house, and so to anoint the next king, they brought all the brothers, and then they said, oh, there is another brother. He was forgotten. But where did he learn to sing and to play the harp? And it was out of sight. The same as that egg. No one sees what's happening inside that egg, but it's happening. So the same with David. No one saw him. He was out of sight. Later on in his life, he was hiding in the cave of Adullam with these few hundred guys. He was out of sight. No one saw him. But God was busy with him. He was preparing him for the appointed time. And in the life of Jesus as well, we see it, that for 30 years, or up to the age of 30, we don't know much about Jesus. He was in the carpenter's house. Right, his dad was a carpenter. That was the time that God was busy with him, because God was waiting for that appointed time. We see also that when he went to the tomb, he was out of sight. He was forgotten, by most. Or it was the end of the chapter, but God was about to do something. So that shell is a place of incubation. It's not a limitation. You see, we sometimes will get frustrated with being in that shell. We'll say, this thing's restricting me. This thing's limiting me. So imagine how Joseph, he's got these dreams, but he's stuck in a prison in a foreign country. No, it's not a limitation on you. It's the place of incubation where God is busy. The fourth thing is timing. And here I want you to remember the word kairos. There's a kairos moment, you see. And I think that's what Ed was also speaking about now, when he was speaking patient endurance until that kairos moment. Because you see, if you go, so with an ostrich egg, if you go after 20 days and break that egg open, you're destroying the potential that could have been. If you break it too early, you destroy the potential. So we've got to wait for that kairos moment. And when is that moment? God knows. And you see, God is, He's always busy. And He's working out many things. So remember there was that movie, so about the guy who received all of these requests from the people, and they all wrote in, and they all asked to win the lotto, and so they all won the lotto, but they all only won $1. Imagine God having to put everything together, having to put all the prophecies together, having to organize this, organize that. He's putting it all together. He knows what He's doing. His timing is perfect. We don't know that. So sometimes we've got to wait. So imagine Jesus, the Son of God. But He waited 30 years. 30 years before the kairos moment when He could be released, baptized by John in order to fulfill prophecy. You see? So everything has its time. And we've got to wait for that kairos moment because that's God's moment. And if we step out before that, we can destroy the potential. And so that's why the purposes that God has got for you, the identity, and destiny, it's the destiny and the dream that God has for you. Because it says there, around Psalm 139 and other places, it says God has thoughts about you, dreams and plans about you before one day even came to be. And so He knows what are those things. It's up to us to go and find out what are those things. But whatever those things are, He's got a time when those things are going to come. So with Jesus, He had to wait all those years. And when He was 30 years old, that was the kairos moment when He could start His ministry. That's when things happened. We know that Paul as well, there was, so from the time of his Damascus experience, there was 3 years, and then there was another 14 years. It's at least 17 years before the fulfillment of that, when he was, that kairos moment, in that church, Antioch, when there was a prophetic word that says, release for me Paul and Barnabas for the work that I've called them to. He already told Paul that 17 years before. But Paul had patient endurance, had to wait for that kairos moment before he was released, so to go out. And so that is, so that's what comes back to us. But a thing that we spoke about over there around Thursday night as well, or on Wednesday night, around the life group, is what happens if you're sitting on the wrong egg? Because there's a cuckoo. The cuckoo comes and lays its egg in another nest, you see. And what happens if it's my dream that I'm waiting on? Or what happens if it's my parents' dream for me that I'm waiting on? You see, you've got to be sure that it's God's dream and not our dream. And many times, you even hear this, where people like testify and say, I'm so grateful to God. He's helped me, He's been with me to fulfill my dreams. No, that's the wrong way around. That God's not here to help us fulfill our dreams. We are here to fulfill His dreams through our lives. And we must get that thing right. And if you just go to that next scripture there, we all know this, Jeremiah 29, verse 11. We know that so well, eh? But it's important always to read what comes before that. Yes, verse 8 says, yes, this is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says. Do not let the prophets and the diviners among you deceive you. To just give you the context, that so the exile has happened. Most of the leaders of Israel are in Babylon, okay? And a lot of the priests in that. Jeremiah already still living there in Israel or Judah somewhere, and he's sent this message there, so there to the people in Babylon. Do not listen to the dreams you encourage them to have. They are prophesying lies to you in my name. I have not sent them, declares the Lord. This is what the Lord says. When 70 years are complete for Babylon, I will come, then I'll come to you and fulfill my gracious promise to bring you back to this place. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. So what God is saying is, make sure it's His plans, His dreams, not those ones that those oaks are giving you, you see. And if we have the wrong starting point, if we have not got His dreams, so that's the starting point. We've got to start there. We've got to make sure that it's His dreams. And we've got to be prepared to lay down our own plans, our own our own ambitions, because then we are bound to get frustrated from hanging on to a dream, a purpose that was never God's intention for us. That's the starting point. And this thing of that we just have to allow this time of incubation. So those are the two critical words, and I thought to maybe give that as the title, incubation and kairos. And I thought, let's stick to the ostriches, nesting ostriches, because I think you'll remember it easier. But those are the two critical words. Incubation is this time when God is busy, and we must allow it to complete. For the ostriches, 42 days. For the kairos moment. Because when that kairos moment comes, that's when the power of God is there. That's God's timing in this thing. And so that we've got to wait. But you know, if you think of that incubation period, that is the perfect example of Hebrews. Hebrews 11 verse 1. Faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. That purpose, that destiny, that dream that God has for our lives, that's inside here. That's what we need faith for. That's faith. Being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. Because if you think of that ostrich, isn't it incredible that they sit there for all those days? Day after day after day. They don't see any change. They don't have scans, that they can look and see, okay, there, I can see the legs forming. They don't have that. They have nothing. There's no noise that's coming from there. They just sit there day after day until the kairos moment. And let's just allow some time. So there's a song about those words. I know the plans I have for you. And so our Stu just plays that there. Let's just allow the Lord to stir our hearts in the first place. Let's make sure that it's His purpose, His destiny, His dream for us. That's the starting point. And then secondly, we must be there nurturing it. We must know there are predators that are going to want to come and kill that thing. We must be there nurturing. Have you seen how the ostriches rearrange the eggs? Eh? They move this one here, this one there. We've got to nurture it. We've got to and keep it warm. And know that God's busy. Don't allow the thing that looks like a shell. It's not a limitation. It's a place of incubation. And then lastly, to wait for that kairos moment, because that's God's timing.